Every year, thousands of construction workers are seriously injured in New York City. Construction workers find themselves confronted by dangerous, unsafe work conditions on a daily basis. New York State has enacted laws and regulations to protect all workers. However, these laws and regulations can be very difficult for the injured worker to navigate without the help of experienced construction lawyers. Block, O'Toole, and Murphy is one of New York's premier construction accident law firms, representing laborers of all kinds who have been injured on the job and have recovered tens of millions of dollars on behalf of injured workers. Their attorneys are members of the New York State Trial Lawyers Association Labor Law Committee, and Dan O'Toole is the co-chair of the New York Labor Law Committee. The firm has also represented union and non-union workers, laborers, electricians, carpenters. They also represented documented as well as undocumented workers, and they work hand in hand with some of the finest workers' compensation and disability lawyers in the state. Today, the Insider Exclusive takes an inside look at the New York law firm of Block, O'Toole, and Murphy and their outstanding record for seeking justice for workers injured on the job that matches none. We will examine some of their multi-million-dollar verdicts and meet some of their clients, and how they make sure juries understand how injuries can truly devastate a person's personal and professional life, and they will not rest until justice is done for their clients. Their results speak for themselves. I'm Steve Murphy, and this is the Insider Exclusive, live from New York City at the law firm of Block, O'Toole, and Murphy. I am very pleased to introduce Dan O'Toole, partner at Block, O'Toole, and Murphy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve.
Now, you have a very interesting practice that you specialize in, and that is construction litigation law, isn't it?
That's correct.
Tell us a little bit about why you like this practice, why you're good at it, et cetera, and a little history of it.
All right. Well, the reason we like this area of the practice is, frankly, because we like the people who do the type of work that, unfortunately, leads them to be hurt so often. These are hardworking men and women who every day go out, put on their pants, go to work, and aren't afraid to sweat. And that really is very much like a lot of the people who work at this firm. None of us were born with silver spoons in our mouths. All of us grew up as hardworking people, and we take that work ethic to work with us every day. We're just fortunate to be in the positions we are, but we love the people we represent. These people are the heart and soul of our country.
Now, you are the co-chair of the New York State Labor Law Committee, Trial Lawyers?
That's correct. New York State Trial Lawyers Association. I'm the co-chair of the Labor Law Committee. And it's our responsibility to preserve the safety protections we have for our workers and also to expand upon it if we can. You know, we live in a city and work in a city where we have great laws on the books to protect our people. Yet in the last year, we've had a tremendous increase in fatalities and a tremendous increase in falls from heights. And that's of great concern to us. And it's an area of the law that's under constant attack from the insurance companies, that they want to loosen the protections to our workers.
Give me an example when you say loosen the laws, the safety laws. What are they doing exactly?
Well,
give me an example.
In New York, we have a special protection afforded to people who work at heights. It's called the Labor Law 240 section. And it protects a very small number of workers, but who face very serious injury potentials, and those people working at heights. And it's been a strict liability statute essentially for the last 100 years. Yeah. And right now, pending in Albany are bills suggested by pro-insurance company legislators to loosen that protection to our workers, to make more of the focus be upon the conduct of the worker rather than the responsibilities of the owners and general contractors.
So the difference, you say strict liability versus a shared liability,
exactly,
if you will.
Yes.
Okay. So right now, if a worker gets injured, and if it was for any reason of his own fault, the total responsibility of taking care of him and everything lies on the company that he's working with.
Yes and no. There are doctrines in the law. Yeah. One of them is known as the sole proximate cause defense, And that basically says that, look, if you were afforded all the protections in the world, you were given the proper safety harness, the proper scaffold, all the proper equipment, and you were instructed and properly trained in how to do it, and you chose, hey, I'm not going to listen to you, I know better, and you're going to act like some crazy guy on a work site, you're not going to recover under the current state of the law. But otherwise, if you've taken appropriate measures as a worker, and you're hurt as a result of the failure of the GC, the general contractor, or the owner, to afford you with the proper equipment, you're going to be protected under this law.
New York has kind of an unusual history of construction law. Tell us a little bit about
Well, it does. I mean, we sit in a unique city. We work in a unique city, beautiful buildings, but they weren't built by robots. They were built by brave men and women who were willing to go up and work at heights that would, frankly, scare the daylights out of me.
Right.
And I like to remind people that every safety law in this city, indeed in this country, is really written in the blood of victims that went before that didn't have the protections that you and I and the guys on the scaffolds today have.
Now, besides trying cases, you as the co-chair of this committee, the Labor Law Committee, you seek to make changes in the government too, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm frequently up in Albany talking to legislators, politicians, and trying to bring to their mind the problems that men and women in the city of New York are focusing on all the time.
A lot of construction workers know you fight hard for them, don't they?
Well, they do, and I don't stand alone. I'm very blessed to have a wonderful group of attorneys working at this firm.
Yeah.
None of whom are here by mistake. I must tell you, everybody was hand-chosen to be here. Many of us were adversaries in the past, and we've certainly been watching these guys progress over the years. And
hire the guys that are good, right?
Hire the best and the brightest. And I'm fond of saying, people ask me, Dan, are you still looking for trial lawyers? I always say, I'm always looking for the best trial lawyers in the city of New York, and I always will be.
We're going to introduce two of them right now, Joseph Donahue and David Scher. It's my great pleasure to introduce David Scher and Joe Donahue to the show. Welcome to the show, Joe.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show, David.
Thanks.
Both of you spend a lot of your time with construction-related injuries and practicing that law. Why does that interest you so much, Dave?
Well, I think the first reason that it's of interest to me and also to our firm is because we really feel good about helping construction workers in New York who unfortunately become injured. I think it's a particularly noble group of people who take on a very high-risk job to build our city and do it the right way. And when they get hurt, I think it's an important thing to make sure that they're protected for their future financially when they can no longer support themselves and their families. And also, I think the reason that it's of interest to us as attorneys is because it's a particularly dynamic area of law where statutes that have been on the books for a long time continue to be interpreted and reinterpreted by the court. So it's a hotly contested area. There's always a lot of appeals, and it's intellectually, I think, interesting.
What are some typical type of construction-related injuries?
Well, our firm deals with significant injuries. So we're talking about workers who generally have either fallen from heights or sometimes maybe an object has fallen onto them, and they can be terribly significant. Many spinal injuries that unfortunately have led to spine surgeries, traumatic brain injuries, multiple fractures. Often the workers we represent, unfortunately, are disabled, and a very good deal of them will be disabled for the rest of their lives.
A lot of construction workers are protected by their unions, aren't they?
Yes.
Or the unions must be fighting for better safety standards too, aren't they?
The unions are doing a fantastic job. They really are getting behind their workers and doing everything they can to make sure that Albany, the legislatures in Albany, understand the inherent risks that come to construction workers by the nature of the work that they do. So they are constantly fighting to make sure that the laws that are on the books now and the way in which they're interpreted are kept so the workers have as much safety as they possibly can to do their work.
Yeah. How do you choose cases? There's a lot of people injured. How do you choose the cases that you take on?
It's a tricky thing because when somebody comes to you, you want to, by nature, help everybody you can.
Yeah.
But what we've done is we really make a commitment to the clients that we have that we are going to do everything in our power to make sure that they receive justice. And in order to do that, we really limit ourselves to the worst, the most catastrophically injured workers. People who have suffered traumatic brain injuries, people who have suffered spinal injuries. And because those cases take so much work and a tremendous amount of effort to make sure that they really receive justice. So we do have to limit the number of cases that we take, but it's very difficult to do because you really want to help those other people.
Well, a lot of people should know that when you come on the case, there's a lot of insurance companies that kind of cringe as I asked one attorney one day, they probably look at you with begrudging respect, right?
They do, and I think that just comes from a lot of hard work. Like David said, making sure that we're never outworked, that we're not outspent. We put all the resources we have in a case, and that really returns results. And insurance companies, they're going to take notice, and they do take notice of our results and what we do in a courtroom. And I think that's what separates us.
We're going to show one of those results. We're going to have Jeff back on right now with one of the clients of the firm, Oscar Torres, who was a delivery man, I think, that was injured in an elevator fall. And they recovered $5.5 million verdict. We're going to have him on right now, and I want to thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. It gives me great pleasure to introduce one of the other partners of the firm, Jeff Block, and his client, Oscar Torres. Welcome to the show, Oscar.
Thank you.
And welcome to the show, Jeff.
Thanks, Steve.
Now, you represented him in an unfortunate accident that he had. He was a delivery man in an elevator that crashed, I guess, and you got a major verdict, $5.5 million. Tell us a little bit about what happened here.
The history with Oscar, it's pretty interesting. Oscar grew up in Puerto Rico, came to the United States to be a long-term truck driver so he could support his family, left behind his wife and his young son, Victor, who happens to be the most important person in Oscar's life. Over time, Oscar stepped up a job and got a better job as a furniture delivery man. He was working in 2003 delivering furniture over in New York City on 42nd Street. While in the course of making deliveries, he entered into a freight elevator that was being operated manually. The operator hit a button and drew down the cage, striking Oscar on the back of the head, neck, and driving him into the ground.
Really?
The whole matter was caught on videotape.
Now, tell us a little bit about this cage hit you, didn't it?
Yes.
And what was your immediate reaction? You fell to the floor or what?
Well, as soon as they hit me, I fell down.
Yeah.
And I sit down in one of the corners of the elevator.
Yes.
Then I feel a little bit dizzy. Then the elevator guy, he just take me up and down in the building.
He just continue operating the
Yes.
elevator with you injured?
Yes.
Okay.
Amazingly, laying on the floor of the elevator.
Laying on the floor, he didn't
yes,
even
sir.
help you pick you up? Nothing?
No, nothing.
Oscar, to his credit, is a big, strong man, as you could see.
Yeah.
He was probably about 260 pounds at the time, 33 years of age. Sat in the truck the rest of the delivery schedule, went home, and the following day had a 5 a.m. delivery out in New Jersey. So he had no one to report to, as this accident happened late in the afternoon the day before.
Yeah.
Oscar actually went to work the next day before seeking any medical care or treatment. That was one of the big issues that the defendants had on the case, is that he could not have really been hurt since he did not go right to the emergency room or seek a doctor's care.
Right.
Immediately following the accident, he actually went to work the next day. Well, he did go to work at 5 a.m. His partner picked him up, put him into the truck, and he sat in the truck while his partner made a delivery in New Jersey. He came back and then went to the emergency room making complaints of head, neck, and back. Oscar went through years of treatment, years of therapy, had his first back surgical procedure where they operated on 2 levels of his lower spine, 1 year post-accident in 2004. Did not have any relief of pain, went back and had a 2-level fusion where they actually put titanium cages, screws, rods in his back. That didn't work for him, and he went on to have what they call a spinal cord stimulator. Unfortunately for Oscar, he had a terrible reaction to the spinal cord stimulator and couldn't tolerate it. They had to remove that, and he's left with what we call a failed lower back surgical syndrome. And Oscar presently is now 33 at the time of accident, and he's now 40 years of age, 39 years of age, and he's totally disabled.
Obviously, you know, this law firm got you a great result. But when you look at other people that you know in your neighborhood that have been injured on the job too, would you recommend them 100% for the full length they went for?
Yes, sir, 100%. These people is the greatest. You know, they don't treat you like he is my lawyer. You know, this is family in this office. You know, as soon you came in from the front door, you see Sharon with a big smile. Then this guy coming out from his office, he give you a big hug. We can sit down in this office for an hour, no, and we don't talk nothing about the case. just talking about personal issues. When I have a problem and I need to talk to somebody, I call him. Come to my office, and I sit down with him and stay hour and a half talking about personal issues.
Tell us the result of this case. You eventually, how long did it take to settle or go to trial? And
Well,
get a verdict?
the case had a very prolonged history because we actually made a certain motion, a dispositive motion. We won liability during the pendency of the case. The defendants appealed it. So we had a prolonged period of time because we went up to the appellate division,
Yes.
waited approximately 2 years, came back down, and then went to try the case. And the case settled during trial for, as you said, $5.5 million.
Well, I'm very sorry about your accident. I'm glad you hired this law firm and got
Thank
the
you.
result, and I want to thank you very much for being on the
Thank you.
program, and we're going to have you
Steve,
back again.
thank you
soon.
very much.
Thank you. Gives me great pleasure to introduce Stephen Murphy and David Scher back on the show. Welcome to the show, David.
Thanks.
Good to see you
You
again.
too, Stephen. There is a client that you had, and his name was Carlos Tirado.
Correct.
And tell us a little bit about, this is a construction-related accident that you represented him, litigated the case, and got an excellent result. Tell us what happened.
Mr. Tirado he's one of our unique clients in that he comes to us with a somewhat troubled past. He had some issues with drug dependency, he had some criminal issues, but he had righted the ship in his life. And he started to work as an electrician with a place called Astro. And while working there, he was working at a facility in Brooklyn, a FedEx building, and he was told to go up on a ladder. He was on an extension ladder that was somewhere between 16 and 18 feet in height, and he was working on doing some repair work to the lighting at this facility. The impression he was left with was that the electricity was off, and he was working on the wiring, and the impression he was left with was obviously incorrect. And he was shocked, electrocuted, and he fell off this ladder. And he fell off, not landing on a pillow, he landed on a hard concrete floor, landed on his head, and sustained very significant injuries. Well, Mr. Tirado had a very, very severe brain injury. It required him to undergo a craniotomy at one of the local New York hospitals. And really, that just was the beginning of the story for him because he had pronounced brain damage, and his life, as he knew it, was completely different. And he's a man that has severe memory problems. He's a man who has anger issues. He doesn't communicate well with people. And so the person who walked into that FedEx facility that day, who was trying to lead a good life and trying to change some of the mistakes he made in the past, his life was destroyed.
Carlos is in the hospital. He has a lot of medical bills. What is your legal strategy to recover the best award for him?
We filed motions, the motion practice. We were successful. Mr. Scher did a wonderful job. So we were in a position right when the trial was getting ready to begin where a judge had already decided as a matter of law that the owner of the facility and the general contractor that retained the company Mr. Tirado worked for, they were legally responsible for the accident because they did not create or maintain a safe place for Mr. Tirado to work.
How might it have been a safer situation?
There's a number of ways that it could have been a safer situation. The, I guess, primary thing is that the entire area in which he was working should have been de-energized. If that had happened, the incident simply would not have occurred. But even, and I'm sorry to interrupt, even if the area had been energized, Mr. Tirado's, most of his injuries could have been avoided if he was simply tied off to a steel truss structure directly above him that could have very easily been accomplished with a simple harness and a lifeline.
That's what I was going to ask. You know, there's a lot of workers in New York that are working at high heights, okay? Do a lot of them get tied off by a harness?
Not nearly enough.
But should that leaves their employers wide open for any kind of liability cases, doesn't it?
Well, New York is interesting in that not only are the employers susceptible to liability issues, but the owners of the facility as well as the general contractors that supervise and control the work, they're responsible as well.
Right. Now, what was the result of this case?
The case was resolved for $5.5 million. A lot of that, fortunately for Mr. Tirado, he elected to have what's known as a structured settlement. And that's something that we employ quite a bit for the clients to protect themselves.
I'm very glad to welcome back Jeff Block and Joe Donahue. Welcome.
Thank you.
There, Jeff. You have an interesting case. This case involved Carmine Cristiano, correct?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about another construction-related injury here.
Carmine was a 37-year-old laborer who was working on the building of a high-rise building right here in Manhattan. And in January of '03, Carmine was working in a soffit, which is a covering over the entrance of the building, and he was installing some insulation. And unfortunately, during the work that he was doing, Carmine fell from a height of 20 feet, landing on the concrete below, suffering really significant injuries.
What were those injuries?
Carmine suffered a fracture to his calcaneus on his left foot, which is the heel bone.
Yeah.
He also suffered a compression fracture of his L2 spine, in addition to some cognitive issues that he had, as well as some lower back issues that he had with respect to his discs.
I'm curious, how'd this case come to you, Jeff?
Well, the case came to us through another attorney who represented Mr. Cristiano, and we became, as there are doctors, we became the lawyer's lawyer.
Yeah.
And because of our general reputation within the field and our ability to expend the resources necessary, and that's not only time and money, but that's also legal talent, the case came to us. When the case came to us, it had just gone up to the appellate division, and the appellate division framed an issue suggesting that Carmine Cristiano was the sole proximate cause of his own injury. We took on the case. We worked extensively with Carmine, his family, knew his kids, really got a feel for who the man was. We then explored the liability extensively, and we did a lot of mock-up work. In other words, we hired an engineer, we rebuilt a soffit.
Right.
We really tried to figure out how we're going to be able to prove to a jury the manner by which this accident occurred.
Initially, what you do is determine the liability first, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Once you determine the liability, and that's a battle in itself, then you have to battle with the insurance companies to determine how much this person should be awarded for their medical bills, right? Future medical problems, et cetera. How did it turn out like that?
Well, Joe and I credit Joe a lot for this as well, we spent a great deal of time learning who his treating doctors were and interviewing his treating doctors well in advance of the trial. And what we learned is not only did Carmine suffer the injuries that Joe just spoke about, but Carmine also had to go for another surgery to fuse one of the two joints of his ankle. So he actually had a fusion such that he was unable to move his ankle in certain directions, affected his ability to walk.
Right.
Carmine was a laborer. If you took away from Carmine his ability to walk properly, he didn't have the ability to really find any other type of employment. So that led us on to a whole another level of damages, which were his future lost earnings.
Right.
We put a medical team together comprised of his treating surgeon. We looked for the best and the brightest that were out there as far as physical and rehabilitative medicine doctors that would come with credibility and testify in a court of law.
Yeah.
And we were able to put it together for the carrier.
You got almost a $5 million verdict, didn't you?
That's right.
So Carmine's pretty satisfied. He's taken care of at least.
Well, we took care of him and his family, and I think he had his just day because the man was truly injured and deserves to have the proper level of medical care going forward.
Right. Well, the amazing thing, and I hear all of the cases you've been discussing, is that you guys go the full length to find out what actually happened, prove that to a jury, and that's important so they can determine liability, and then take it all away, make sure that your client gets as much as they possibly can to have a better sort of life, right?
Absolutely, and it's not even a better life, but to make sure that they're getting everything that they're going to need in the future, from the wages that they're never going to earn again, to coverage for the medical care that they're going to need for the remainder of their lives.
I want to welcome back Dan O'Toole. Dan, we've heard a lot from a lot of your lawyers, especially some of the cases they've handled. They all relate to construction accident cases. What are some of the things that if you're involved, important items, that if you're involved in a construction-related accident on the job, what are some of the things that you should do immediately?
Well, the first thing, of course, is you should take care of yourself. Make sure you get the appropriate medical attention that you need. And then I think the next thing you need to do is try to breathe the breath of relaxation to a certain extent and say, well, what protections do I have under the law?
Yeah, what are your rights?
And what your rights are, if it's a construction-related accident, you have a right under the workers' compensation law to have your wages and your medical bills paid for. And that's a terribly important protection under the law because we all have families to support and we need to put food on the table.
Yeah.
So the beauty of that law, and it by no means a perfect system, but the beauty of the law is that it takes that stress off the injured worker. And then the next thing they need to do, of course, is consult with a qualified third-party attorney. Third-party meaning someone that could bring an actual lawsuit against the owner and the general contractor.
And your law firm is known for doing that.
That's precisely what our specialty is. It's really one of the cornerstones of our practices, helping injured workers who are hurt on a construction accident.
One of the things that I've heard over and over again in this show is the fact that more lawyers refer cases to your law firm when a construction-related injury happens than I've ever heard of any law firm in the state of New York.
Well, and thank goodness for that, because
Yeah.
it's just not for anybody, and nothing's easy about it. You need to have an expertise in the protections, the laws that are afforded to the men and women who work in the field,
Yeah.
and you need to have a reputation. When they see the big guns coming in, it makes a big difference. It immediately changes the valuation of the case.
Well, thank God you're here to protect the worker, and I want to thank you very
Thank
much
you so
for
much
being
for
on the
being here,
program.
Steve. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. You can get more information about the guests, the lawyers, and the issues at insiderexclusive.tv. Thank you.